Oh my God, I'm excited for today's episode because I've never heard this. What I'm about to say has come to me this week in downloads because I've been thinking a lot about toxic masculinity. I've been thinking about the witch trials, and that's what the last podcasts have been on. And it's sent me down this wild path of exploring patriarchy from an energetic angle. It's occurred to me in the biggest way that patriarchy not only is not an institution in itself, and I'll explain that, but it also has harmed men, women, people of all genders equally. So basically, buckle in because we need every single person on this cause. And up until now, because the patriarchy has been understood as an institution, I feel like it's been kind of used as like this dichotomy, like only females would care about dismantling the patriarchy. But the dark truth is that it's an energy that works through institutions and seeks to control not just women, but everybody. Everybody. Now, we're moving into the age of Aquarius. Okay. So, like, collectively, astrologically, this is what's happening. And remember the Age of Aquarius, the song, like people have been talking about this for a very long time because it has a high level of astrological significance. And if you're not someone who follows astrology, it doesn't matter. The only thing you really need to understand is that this era is all about balancing out. It's about old, destructive, archaic ways of thinking, of keeping people controlled and locked in, are crumbling. And patriarchy is one of them. So the age of Aquarius is officially upon us in the next 2 weeks. And this is the perfect time to understand what exactly the patriarchy is and means for every single human. You know, when we say patriarchy, often people think immediately of men, and that is wrong. It's wrong. It keeps patriarchy in place. So let's just throw out that definition and start with a blank slate. Patriarchy is the dark desire to acquire power by means of domination and control. That's patriarchy. Now, think of patriarchy almost like a black hole because power is just energy. It can't be created or destroyed, right? So if a being is power in and of itself, personal power cannot be taken or destroyed. We have to be tricked into thinking we don't have it. And that's what the patriarchy does. It reduces us to our most ego-based definitions of self. So the patriarchy will encourage you to believe you're a man, you're a woman, you have status, you don't have status, and that means something to your self-worth. Patriarchy is very much concerned with image because the image or society or the ego is a really good way to trick you into thinking that you don't have power. If you're within a capitalist system, let's say, your part of your worth definition, as far as the patriarchy is concerned, is how much money you make, what your title is, because these things are useful for the patriarchy. As long as you believe it's important, you make a certain amount of money, you'll be more likely to work to further the agenda of some billionaire. And ironically, you'll think that you have it made, even if you're not enjoying what you're doing, because the patriarchy is robbing you of time. You will receive monetary compensation for time that you don't want to spend. You are being owned by the patriarchy. Okay. So, by that notion, the patriarchy is not a single institution, it's many institutions. It works through institutions. But make no mistake, patriarchy is the dark energy. Now, again, like both men and women fall victim to this. Like with the job example of being robbed of time, this is why part of the reason I say that men are equally affected. Because what the patriarchy seeks to do is take your freedom. Power Personal power is freedom. If you are in control of what you say, what you feel, how you use your time, the way that you express yourself, you have personal freedom. You have personal power. The patriarchy, this dark energy, will convince you you are not free. And again, it does this through institutions. So we go through the school system, we learn how to obey. If we're sick, we go to a doctor who's licensed by an institution, who is affiliated with drug companies. Do you see where I'm going with this? Every single institution works this way, the mainstream ones. It's not an accident that there are a select few billionaires that own the media outlets, because basically those are vehicles to sell fear to people. The easiest person to control is someone who is afraid. And so that dark energy manipulates physical reality in order to keep humans in fear. And this is like, again, every single human. This isn't a simple story of, oh, men owning women and wanting to control women. That's not patriarchy. To me, patriarchy is truly a dark energy that seeks to control all humans. Another really powerful way that this has been done is through convincing us that we are not divine, that we are just meat suits, that our bodies are strictly mechanical, that we don't have a relationship to energy, to the divine, because in reality, we are souls in human bodies. But you can't sell that. You can't own or control that. So the patriarchal agenda will want you to think that you are a meat suit, and that's the beginning and end of the story. The less people respect themselves, the more easily they can be controlled. And again, that applies to men and women, or people of all genders. And I apologize. I am going to use men and women in this podcast. You can take that to apply to your own personal definition. That's not the important part, because again, this isn't a gender war. I think that's another tool of the patriarchy, that we've been kind of trained to think of things as a dichotomy, as a gender war or a class war. That's not the point of this. It's that in society, we have been collectively gaslit into believing that we are just physical humans, when in reality, we are metaphysical and limitless. Like our power to create, our power of expression and freedom is limitless. But under a patriarchal agenda, you're not supposed to feel that way. Now, I want to talk about the impact that's had on men, because I do not believe that's been talked about enough, not near enough. Historically, part of the patriarchal agenda is making women appear weak, um, because we're quote unquote like more emotional. Like that's been sort of the um commonly accepted, emotional expression of men and women is women are sort of, it's accepted that women express emotion. It has been societally less acceptable for men to express emotion. That's extremely dangerous. What it's led to is an extreme imbalance in like men's mental health. Quality of life statistics are lower. Their lifespan is lower than women's. And if from a metaphysical angle, that makes a lot of sense, because, men are conditioned not to show emotion. And I am convinced that's because men are also under patriarchal rule. Like that dark energy seeks to control men as well. So I did another episode on energetic duality, that we all have masculine and feminine aspects within us. That's just what it means to be human and an energetic being. Little boys are not taught. I was thinking, okay, where does this idea of dominating a female or owning a female come from? Like, is that taught to little boys? Not explicitly. What they learn is to dominate their own feminine aspects because the dark patriarchal energy is actually a war on femininity. It's a war on energetic duality. It's like a war on energy balance within a human. So little boys are taught to suppress their emotions. They're taught not to cry. They're taught not to do anything that would allow their feminine energy through. There are, and this makes me so sad to say, but there are parents who would have a problem with a little boy doing ballet or otherwise expressing himself like a healthy human. That, to me, really demonstrates that patriarchy is an energy. It's a war on energy. Because the little boy isn't taught, okay, you're all powerful, you get to own people, da da da. No, he's taught that his feminine aspects are to be rejected, like they're not to be accepted, that it's not okay for his feminine energy to come through. And this is why you see so many women um, who are reclaiming their power. They'll try to do it in a false way first, where they just imitate what they see from men. So there are tons of, especially in the corporate world, there are female leaders who who won't show emotion, who have also blocked themselves off from their feminine aspects because the dominant rhetoric of patriarchy is that maleness equals power. Sadly or hilariously, I'm not sure, this has done so much damage to, again, everyone of all gender expressions or all energies. We are meant to be balanced, not to try to dominate ourselves and then later extend that into dominating another human being. Like historically, the rhetoric has been, okay, gain over ownership over a human being. Like that's kind of the agenda is like, if you're a man, you're supposed to gain ownership over a woman and her children. The woman is locked into spending her time raising them. She doesn't have agency. She doesn't have access to money. Historically, this wasn't the case. Like women couldn't even get a credit card until 1970 something. It's crazy. And so she's got no mobility, no freedom of her own. And then the man is equally locked in. He's usually, working for some corporation. Maybe he's working for himself, but either way, he is taught that his worth is in what he provides to his family, not emotionally, but economically, because money has been used as a tool of the patriarchy. Financial abuse is something we are coming to understand has happened to women for the entirety of history. Because without money, you do not have choices. You're locked into place. But in a lot of cases, men have been sort of subject to the same like false equivalency where their self-worth has been considered how much money they make. That's also an extreme drain of resource. Like in that framework, what choice does a man have? We don't think about the men throughout history that would have wanted to, spend more time with their children or live a more full life to pursue hobbies and to actually enjoy their time. Instead, it would have been locked into either making themselves rich or making someone else rich. The patriarchy's favorite tool is ego in this case. We're meant to feed our egos, not ourselves. If you distract men by showing them shiny objects and making them chase them, They'll never look within. So if you want to make money off of them, you won't be able to do that if they're actually concerned about their emotional world. So what do you do? Because again, power can't be like power is energy. Personal power, it's just energy. It can't be created or destroyed. So you can't take that away from someone directly. You have to convince them that they don't have it. A great way to do that when the conversation is about men is to make them chase the material and ignore the inner, because that's where the power lies. Now, I mean, historically, people have been evaluated based on how much they provide to the patriarchy. So the highest value man is one who wants to own women, children, property. The highest value woman is the one who doesn't question that narrative and produces children to be owned, allows herself to be owned. Like that's the ideal patriarchal model, because patriarchy is just a dark energy that seeks to reproduce itself for the sake of reproducing itself so that it never dies, because it seeks immortality. The patriarchal energy is a dark energy that's rooted in the physical world. And that's the way a cancer reproduces. There's no statement of quality. It's just reproducing the same thing over and over again in order to take over. That's not living. That's trying to prolong death, really, which is just another form of extending the dying process. If you think about it, further to ego, another tool of the patriarchy has been the denial of divinity for humans. The more you feel physically rooted only, like there's so much to life that we don't see. We can feel it, we don't see it. So much is invisible. I think I saw a statistic this week. It was like, I think we only see something insane, like 2% of the light spectrum. Might not even be. I think it was 1%. And that just speaks to how much metaphysical energy there is around us all the time, how much divinity, how much we embody this divine light energy. But that's power, that's freedom, and we're not supposed to see that. So instead, that dark patriarchal agenda has been to make us believe that we are solely physical, that we are opposite, that we're not all souls in human bodies, but two different types of humans with two different functions. This is incorrect. It's left us fragmented and not knowing what we are, because every single human needs to be connected with their energy. We're not just meat suits. We're immensely powerful beings, and we need to be connected to our hearts so that we can give and receive love and create what we're meant to create while we're on earth. And that looks different for everybody. So the denial of the divine is another tool that's been used against all people. And I was thinking about this today. It's so interesting that, you know, hardcore patriarchal Christians are very afraid to look at any spiritual text other than the Bible. Like everything else has been made kind of like evil, which is super convenient when you think about it, because if you start looking at other spiritual texts, you notice they are all the same, including the Bible. Every spiritual text tells basically the same story. And the truth of it comes through when you start to compare it. Now, the Bible has been, the teaching of the Bible has been sorely, well, it's been backwards, really. I've been reading Eckhart Tolle and Neville Goddard lately, and they both interpret the Bible in a way that's blown my mind. Like the Bible was written in an Eastern tradition. So looking at it through a Western lens is already wrong. most often in the Bible, when they talk about a marriage relationship, like man, woman, whatever, what they're talking about is one single consciousness. And this comes from I've first been exposed to this with by Eckhart Tolle and then Neville Goddard, that they're not talking about physical male and female. They're talking about parts of consciousness where the male aspect of consciousness is the conscious, and then the female aspect or feminine aspect is the subconscious. So basically, we are each meant to have energetic balance. And in the episode where I talked about duality, it's that same concept. And I feel this intuitively, like we've been cut off of who we actually are and taught a wrong version that's allowed our personal power to be taken from us. Because again, like our power can't even be taken, but we can be tricked into giving it away. This has led to just dissension and mental health issues and all sorts of things that we can feel but don't know what the cause is. So I feel like this is an extremely important message to get out there and to keep talking about, just that the patriarchy is not an institution, and it doesn't only seek to control women, it seeks to control everyone. As long as we're looking at each other as property or as at ourselves as property, you know, ironically, we are all made property under that framework. We're all robbed of our personhood. So we should all be pissed and look at each other compassionately. Okay. Thank you for listening. This has 1,000 different permutations. So I know this is something I'm going to talk about again. But for now, I want to leave you with this. Every single human has an inherent self-worth that cannot be taken, it can only be hidden. So if you believe that your worth as a human is in any way tied to your salary, your title, your job, what you look like, sound like, what you wear, what's in your possession, then you have very understandably been taught a patriarchal story. You've been affected by a dark patriarchal energy that literally is dissolving as we enter the age of Aquarius. So you're going to hear more of this story, not less, not just from me, but around. Like as we sort of get into this new era, I think that our metaphysical intelligence is increasing. And I think that our understanding of each other, of ourselves, of the world as a mirror of what we've believed for a really long time, and now we're finally starting to question, it's all going to become more and more prominent. So, so just remember that you are extremely valuable, not for your output, but for what's inside. And if you don't believe that yet, because you haven't accessed what's inside yet, that's okay. If you're listening to this right now, you're either there or you're getting there. But just know that you are deeply valuable and you have a worth that can never, ever be taken from you. Okay. All right. Stay balanced, and I will see you next time.